The internet exploded, not merely responded. One of Atlanta's strongest couplings, which was previously hailed as a union of love and hip-hop, crumbled in real time, with terrible consequences. Candy Smith, the woman who had stood up for her husband in the face of imprisonment, scandal, and unrelenting criticism from the public, found herself in the middle of a storm by herself. She didn't anticipate it. This was not a background rumor of infidelity. This wasn't an out-of-context fuzzy picture. This was betrayal taking place in front of camera flashes, neon lights, and champagne glasses. And it all began with a chat that ought to have been harmless. Jessica White had no intention of becoming a destructive messenger. Expecting nothing more than a casual catch-up, she sat down with Yandy. Perhaps some light discussion about her niece Robin, a young woman navigating Atlanta's influencer scene with confidence and ambition, and perhaps a few giggles. However, that discourse took a turn that was irreversible. Because there was a truth beneath the surface that would destroy marriages, friendships, and a whole reality TV series. Yandy's Mendez Harris, the spouse, whose redemption arc was based on family and loyalty, is said to have proposed to another woman. It wasn't a stranger, either. It was inexcusable because she was so near. It was the night that everything changed in the end. There was no tension or suspicion at the start. Celebration was the first step. Red Martini was still alive. Dim lights, pulsating bass, and the distinct energy of Atlanta's elite. The VIP areas were packed with infludes. Money flowed as freely as the cocktails, and reality stars posed with ease. Mendeecees was present, but there was something strange about him. Not a wedding band. He didn't hesitate to name his wife across the room. Jessica White had gone outside to relax with Robin, her niece. Robin wasn't trying to gain influence. She had gifts already. The serene self-assurance that demands attention without pleading for it. And Mendeecees saw. He didn't wait for an introduction or circle from a distance. According to Robin, as planned, he moved straight out of his group and sat next to her. Light-hearted laughter, beverages, and joyful energy began the discourse. But Robin saw something odd right away. He was unguarded. He didn't exercise caution. He appeared to be unmarried. "Are you married?" is a question that every woman ultimately asks. His response didn't bring ease. "It's difficult." The flame that ignited everything would come from that sentence. Later on, Jessica would repeat those comments incredulously. Complicated. From a guy whose public persona was based on dedication, parenting, and atonement. Robin wasn't speculating. She wasn't making assumptions. She had invoices. The interaction continued beyond the club. From digital footprints to flirting, messages started to look distinctly familiar rather than aggressively romantic. Praises, casual salutations, and inquiries masquerading as curiosity. "Are you currently in Atlanta or Miami?" It wasn't hostile, it was computed. There was innuendo in the tone, availability, and invitation. He didn't even get Robin's phone number. She was not required to. He discovered her on the internet. Experienced in the entertainment industry, Jessica refrained from making snap judgments. However, this wasn't merely rumors. This was not a moment exaggerated by a fan. It was a pattern. Additionally, the pattern appeared uncannily familiar. The same allure. The delivery is just as seamless. Yandy was previously won over by the same energy. Jessica was convinced of one thing: the truth would come out even if she didn't say anything. And controversy spreads like wildfire in Atlanta. So she decided she would personally tell Yandy the eye-opening talk. Loken. When Jessica and Yandy eventually sat down, it didn't explode. It was heavy. Hesitancy shrouded with concern. Loyalty, fighting the truth. The cameras rolled. However, the suffering was genuine. Jessica whispered, "I need to talk to you about People are beginning to take notice." Yandy's initial response was one of defense mixed with perplexity. "Have you noticed?" Jessica didn't hesitate. "He has been conversing with my niece, Robin." The words hit hard. Then came screenshots. Timestamps, messages that didn't appear to be coincidental. Allegations of a missing ring, and the statement, "It's complicated." Yandy read every word before laughing, not in jest, but in denial. She asserted that the communications were her own, and that she had tested Robin using his account to see whether another lady would go too far. Jessica froze. The story didn't make sense. The timestamps were incorrect. No woman can deceive Yandy, and the tone wasn't hers. Unless something more profound is being concealed. Friends, niece. Behind them, fear flickered. Jessica saw it in Yandy's eyes. BGI and Atlan didn't wait for confirmation. According to the murmurs, the city was humming by the following morning. The missing ring was noted by fans. Every frame was analyzed by blogs. Speculation exploded on social media. Yandy would normally reply right away, clarifications, posts, and lives. But silence this time. Panic took the place of assurance within her house. Calls flooded in, cast members, publicists, and producers. Everyone was looking for solutions. One phrase stuck in her head, therefore she didn't have any, it's difficult. Before he ever opened his words, Mendeecees' body language conveyed all. When he finally entered the room, he said, "You've seen the blogs." Yandy lost her temper. She pushed her phone in his direction. "Explain this." He paused, and his reluctance served as confirmation. The final words were, "She didn't want, I haven't made a proposal to anyone." No proposition had been mentioned by her. Her heart fell, the word that made all the difference. "Who informed you about that?" She insisted. His silence spoke for him. Another call came in before she could press any further. This one was important. The first TMZ video. Me. Mona Scott desired prompt responses. The realization made Yandy's knees weaken. Rumor was no longer proof. It was proof. And it was already being devoured by the internet. Yandy's entire body went cold as soon as Mona Scott used the word video. Not because she didn't think it could be true, but rather because she recognized the significance of footage in 2026 online society. The truth loses its significance. The public doesn't wait for background after the verdict. It doesn't wait for subtleties. Doesn't give the wife a chance to regain her breath. It simply consumes food. The call came to an end. The space didn't. As her husband paced more quickly, loudly, and frantically like moving wood, Yandy stood there gazing at him. "Rework the evening in some way. I didn't make a proposal." "Like a prayer," he continued to repeat under his breath. "They are twisting it. I let something fall." "Stop," Yandy cut him off. It appeared. Trembling voice. "I'm offended by your tone." Tears glistened in her eyes. However, her tone became more menacing than emotional. She said softly, "Clarity. You know what hurts the most?" That statement hung in the air like a pistol on the table. "It's not the blogs. It's not the trolls. It's that you keep putting me in situations where I have to choose between protecting my peace or protecting you." Because it was tiredness rather than just rage. Years of it. Atlanta was already using her marriage as a source of entertainment outside that living room. A new Mal is discovered online. The video appeared on the timeline in a matter of hours. A dimly lit bar, a wobbly camera, and then DC kneeling over while Robin stood in front of him, grinning and holding out his hand. When taken out of context, it appeared to be the most embarrassing thing a woman could possibly witness. A woman stands in front of a man who is kneeling. The audience responded as if they had seen something. The briefness of the video didn't matter. It was fuzzy, but that didn't matter. What it required was available on the internet. Began to ascend. Mendeecees' suggestion. #Yand is deserving of better. Robin Demdrama It's challenging. Even Yan's admirers couldn't agree on what they were witnessing. Two tribes emerged from the remarks. "Leave him on one side. You were never worthy of him. This is a fake," the other. "They are preparing her for a plot." However, the debate wasn't the worst part. The worst thing was that every viewpoint was being created without Yandy's permission as she sat on her couch, gazing at 4K reposts of her own humiliation. Normally, she would have gone live, right away. Usually, she would have taken the stage in the story. But this time, she remained motionless, quiet, and the public learned something from that silence that they weren't prepared to acknowledge. She was afraid of what she may discover next. Not of the internet. "Describe how you learnt about a proposal." Yandy took a seat again. She squeezed her phone in her fist, as if it were 50 pounds. Mendeecees paused his pacing and gave her a calculated glance. "How to live, not how to console her." "Do you really believe that I'm foolish enough to ask someone to marry me in a club?" he inquired. Yandy's gaze widened. She said, "I think you're dumb enough to treat me disrespectfully and then act perplexed when I react." But he blinked in response to my query. "I never mentioned making a proposition. So why did you claim that you didn't?" His mouth opened, closed, and then opened again. And during that pause, Yandy, before she even heard the truth, she saw it. There was more that she was unaware of because he knew exactly why someone had made a proposition. The call comes from the producers. The network becomes terrified. Once more, Yandy's phone buzzed. Publicists, producers, and actors members. It wasn't simply chatter, though. This time, damage control was the goal. Simply chatter, though. This time, damage control was the goal. Mona's voice sounded icy and clipped when she responded. The voice of a lady who had witnessed too much chaos to continue pretending. "We need to talk," Mona stated. The network was contacted by TMZ's throat tightened, and they're claiming Jessica's niece says he proposed. Mona went on. Yandy's knees nearly gave way as she said, and they're saying she has video. Video, as in the clip online. No, Mona snapped. Then Mona's true worry emerged. They're saying full footage exists. Not the show, not the children, not the marriage, not Yandy's suffering. Mona remarked, "You have to get ahead of this. Because the network will make a comment if this continues to spread. You also lose control once the network speaks." Yandy was slapped hard by that word, command, because she had been clutching to control. The one thing preventing her from plummeting separate. The call came to an end. Yandy refrained from crying. Not quite yet. She simply gazed at her husband as if it were the first time she had ever seen him. Additionally, he appeared smaller than before. It becomes WR because of the blogs. There was no mess for the next 48 hours. They were aggressive. The sites didn't publish the story not physically, but in terms of reputation. It was milked. The headlines cried out. Yandy, embarrassed following Mendeecees' proposal to Jessica White's niece. Is love and the most famous partnership in hip-hop coming to an end? Yandy is quiet. Mendeecees sidesteps. Robin possesses receipts. Rapid-fire breakdowns were posted by drama channels on YouTube. TikToks slowed down the video and focused on the face expressions, added melancholic music, and then changed to villain edits of Mendeecees as if he were a movie antagonist, and worse. Yandy's stiff stance, laugh, and emotional response to Jessica. Memes were created by clipping the denial. It went from controversy to cruelty at that point. Healing is more difficult when suffering is used as a joke. Yandy's home turns into a PR. Sean in her house. Every hour, the walls felt more constricted. The buzzing of her phone would not go away. She was unable to scroll without seeing her own face. Couldn't open Instagram without seeing comments from strangers discussing whether or not she deserved to stay. And they weren't limited to the internet. Her real life started to change, with 2 family members calling, friends texting, and people who hadn't checked on her in years suddenly praying in her dark, while simultaneously witnessing her demise like a television show. When repercussions appeared, he resumed his usual behavior: gaslight, minimize, and divert. He warned her, "You worry too much about what other people think." Yandy jerked her head in his direction. "No," she muttered. "You don't give your work enough thought. Jessica is not finished." And Yandy ought to have at that point. Jessica had already done the worst thing. According to Yandy. Jessica hadn't yet presented the nuclear evidence. Therefore, she was mistaken. All she had brought was smoke. Jessica was already cautioning Mona behind the scenes. It becomes darker here. She informed her that Robin had more than DM is not a fuzzy video or a shaky moment. Audio and video in full. TIMS. Evidence that doesn't allow for justifications. Mona set up something that was more akin to an intervention than reality. TV, a private gathering. Off-dash camera. Just the truth, no glitz, lights, or dots. It was calm and dark during the intimate meeting in by K2KC, 2K2A. The kind of silence that amplifies the sound of each breath. Yandy sat rigidly, tired, her eyes bulging as if she hadn't slept for days. Jessica was composed, yet uncomfortable, as if she had already shed tears in private and had nothing else to offer. Sitting with her phone in both hands, Robin used it as both a weapon and a shield. Mona was the first to speak, her voice flat. She said, "I want honesty before we start. Show Jessica what you did, Robin. No disruptions." With trembling hands, Robin nodded. She tapped the dot on her phone. The room then watched the night once more, but it wasn't a clip this time. It was the narrative. The club was where the video began. Mendeecees' voice could be heard above the strong bass. "You look good tonight," he remarked. Robin chuckled uncomfortably. "Aren't you married?" she then inquired, and once more, there it was. Jessica averted her gaze as if she couldn't stand to hear it again. "It's complicated." Yandy's jaw was clenched so tightly that it appeared painful. Then the time came. Mendeecees fell to his knees. And the angle was obvious this time. People applauded. The hand of Robin Mendeecees took out a small piece of jewelry that resembled a ring from his pocket and gave it to her. It didn't matter if the ring wasn't a real diamond. The embarrassment was genuine. There was actual disdain. It was a genuine performance. Additionally, it was captured at the conclusion of the video. Nothing moved in the room. Not right away. The air conditioner, HUMMED. The quiet cried out. Yandy gazed at the phone as if it had just slain a part of her. Then she said something. Sharp but trembling voice. "Thus, this is referred to as a proposal." Jessica cautiously leaned in. Yandy, "I am aware of how awful it appears. Not good." Yandy lost his temper. At last, the tears came. That's my hubby on his knees, giving a ring to another woman. Whether it was a dare, a joke, or drunken foolishness doesn't matter to me. Humiliation is what that is. Robin winced. She said, I didn't post it, someone else did. She was no longer merely observing her spouse, so Yandy was no longer even able to hear her treat her disrespectfully. She was observing the version of herself that thought loyalty could solve any problem, fell apart. The stroll. Oh, UTI. The chair scratched the floor like punctuation as Yandy got to her feet. She gave Jessica a look. I didn't have to go through this again because of you. Jessica maintained eye contact. She said, I didn't do this to hurt you. Someone else would have done it if I hadn't. In any case, the blogs will receive this complete version. I assure you. Mona remained silent, watching, now as a witness rather than a producer. Yandy was the first to leave the building. Was waiting already? Inquiries from paparazzi cameras. Is it true, Yandy? Are you abandoning him? Did he make a proposal? She remained silent. She simply continued to stroll alongside her. Answering meant acknowledging it aloud. So hands were shaking and head lowered. She wasn't prepared either. Not quite yet. That evening, Yandy remained silent in front of the cameras. She did not return the applause. She didn't refute it. She didn't elaborate. Rather, she went home, shut the door, and sat quietly as the outside world turned her, turning heartbreak into content. Silence, however, doesn't stop the internet. It gives it nourishment. The life that shattered Yandy eventually showed up later. Not in a confessional. Not on a red carpet, but live on Instagram. No armor, no makeup, and no filter. Although her voice was calm, it sounded practiced, as if she had practiced it to prevent herself from passing out. I'm not perfect, she said, but I've always had a strong love. In a matter of minutes, the number of viewers surpassed 100,000. I've always protected my family. Support flooded in right away. I'm hurt, I'm embarrassed, and yeah, I'm angry. The screen was filled with hearts. Celebrities made comments. Her admirers referred to her as a queen, strong, and devoted. It seemed as though the tide would change for a brief period. Then it took place. Deep among the stream of comments, an anonymous account sent out a single message. There were other nights as well. 5 words, no name, no explanation, no emojis, just a warning. Mid-sentence, Yandy froze. This time, she looked at the screen more slowly, as if she was expecting to mistake it. There were other nights as well. Her breathing shifted. Her voice wavered. She abruptly ended the live performance. Just darkness. No farewell, no sign. Ian's life came to an end when the floodgates opened. Yandy received an overwhelming number of direct messages. A few clearly, the messages were from attention-seeking trolls. Others were conjecture, disguised as worry. However, a few stood out. They weren't admirers. They were individuals who asserted their closeness. Promoters, bartenders, and a red martini dancer. Those who claimed to have spotted Mendeecees out several times. The same confidence, the same missing ring, and the same energy. Yandy remained silent. She was unable to. At 3 in the morning, unable to tolerate it any longer, Jessica was contacted. For a moment, her voice broke. Jessica responded to Jess. I recently received a direct message from someone stating that it wasn't the only night. A pause occurred. Jessica then let out a Yandy breath. There were rumors weeks prior to that club, which I didn't want to mention earlier. At night, I was informed by Robin that she saw him once more. Same attitude, same justifications. Yandy felt her chest constrict. How come you didn't tell me? Jessica muttered. I was hoping it would stop. But nothing remains concealed here. Atlanta, you know. At that moment, Yandy came to a terrible realization. It wasn't just red martini. The moment was the only thing that was captured, was discovered. By morning, the tale has changed after Robin goes live. The blogs didn't know more conjecture. They were becoming worse. Photos of dots and dashes appeared side by side. Weeks apart, Mendeecees and Robin attended separate events. The TikTok account slowed down videos, focused on body language, and included subtitles that asked whether the content was humorous or not. Next, Robin went live. She didn't appear arrogant, didn't appear enthusiastic. She appeared scared. Hair is pulled back. Didn't appear enthusiastic. She appeared scared. Hair is pulled back.